What's up, my squids? It's been a few weeks. I missed you guys. We had a great episode today. Solo, dolo, flolo, rolo. That means I'm by myself. All right, this was ISO ball, which is fitting because we're talking about handles. We went in depth on ball handling. What are the traits that we got to look at? What are the traits that we got to improve? I gave ball handling tips, exact drills of what you need to be doing. Keep in mind, I have an entire program, a 12-month program. Everything is progressive. This month through September, it's going to be 20% off with the CODE-handleteam. So pjfperformance.net, search on your computer or your phone, click the training tab. You're going to see ball handling program. Put in that code, all lowercase, all one word. You'll get 20% off. Also, we got the merch. The merch is officially here. We got long sleeve, short sleeve. We got the hoodies. Get that PJF merch if you're trying to support Team Squid. Also, in this episode, I don't want to forget, we talked about deep work. This is the trait that we have to have. This is the thing that is going to separate us as squids, whether you're a student, whether you're a business owner, whatever it is. Deep work is the most undervalued trait in today's society. And us right now, just us, we're going to become dominant in our field by learning how to get away from fake busy and doing real deep work. Let's get this work. You're listening to the PJF Podcast, a show dedicated to decoding elite sports performance and fitness. I'm Paul Fabritz, and I'm an MBA strength and conditioning and performance trainer. If you want to become superhuman, take your fitness, and take your sports performance to the next level, this is the podcast for you. Let's do it. What's up, my squids? It's been a while. 2 weeks now. I missed you guys. I had withdrawals. I need to see you guys. I need to talk to you guys. So we're back. I am sick today. For some reason, allergies just cocked back its right hand and just gave me the biggest uppercut. And I got knocked out. I'm down on my back. I'm out for the count. I've never had allergies in my life until this year. All of a sudden, they got terrible, and I don't know what it is. Doctors can't figure it out, but we out here. I figured I got to show up. I got to talk to the squids. I got some stuff to say. We got some good announcements. One announcement. See this tee I'm wearing? PJF merch is officially dropped. Depends when this episode comes out, but I believe it will be officially dropped by the time you guys hear this episode. So we got these long sleeve tees. This one is super fresh. The long sleeve white. We got the long sleeve black. We got the short sleeve white and black. The short sleeves are the "You Can't Cheat the Grind" tee, and the PJF logo is on the back. So the reason that quote means so much to me, I mean, one, it's just a dope quote, and it's kind of what I live by. It's what my clients live by. But we put that on the banner. So that's like our main banner at our gym. It says, "You can't cheat the grind." And then on the other side, it says, what does it say, Calvin? It says, "You don't know? Come on, bro. You've been to our gym every day for the last 2 years." Wow. Okay. Well, I'm on my own out here, guys. So on the other side, it says, "It knows how much you've invested. It won't give you anything that you haven't earned." Calvin, remember that. So that's what it means a lot to me. The kids love that quote. My NBA players love that quote. So I said, look, let's just throw that on a t-shirt. And then we got the PJF logo on the back. So those are dope. And then the final piece to the puzzle that we got is the hoodie. So it's more like a kind of like a thin hoodie, like a t-shirt, but it's got the hoodie. Like you could work out in it. Good for the winter. You could kind of rock it in the summer. So be sure to check out pjfperformance.net and then click on store, or go to my Instagram and click on store, and you can buy directly from there. Okay, another announcement. Obviously today we're talking about ball handling. We decided to make our ball handling program 20% off for September. So this is only for September. The discount code is HANDLETEAM. All one word, all lowercase, HANDLETEAM. That'll get you 20% off of the entire program. Remember, the program's an entire year, or 20% off of each month. And then like all of our subscription programs, you basically cancel whenever you want. So if you want to do it for 2 or 3 or 4 months and then pause it, cancel it, and then come back on later, that's fine. But you will get 20% off of each month. We have so many drills on there. You could never run out of drills. I mean, we have so many drills, from ball handling drills to move breakdowns to pick and roll breakdowns. So you improve your handles, but you also improve your IQ. It is a very, very well-rounded program. I don't think that there's a more comprehensive ball handling program out there, especially not one that progresses every month for an entire 12 months. So be sure to check that out. The third announcement, we lost a squid. Skylar is out for a while until the summer. He took a coaching job in Iowa or Idaho. Iowa or Idaho? Calvin? Iowa. He is in Iowa. He took a college coaching job, so he's running the strength program, and then I guess he's the assistant coach, kind of like what Corey Schlesinger was talking about. That type of strength coach might be taking over the industry in the future. He understands the basketball side, so and then he understands he understands the weight room side. So he's a good fit over there. He's going to get some great experience, and then he's going to be back probably in the summer. So most of these podcasts from here on out are going to be solo, dolo, just me, one squid running the show. What it do? Let's get it. And I got some dope guests, so the conversation will keep going. I got some really good guests lined up that you guys are going to like. So we will not take a step back, because that's not what we do. And that's not what you do. None of us take a step back. It doesn't matter what happens. We keep going. We keep getting it. We never get knocked down. And when we do get knocked down, we get right back up. I'm hyped. I'm a little bit too excited today. But anyways, what I want to talk about today before we get into handles is something that is very, very, very important for students going back to school, for business owners, for just about anybody who's trying to get to the next level regardless of your craft. And that is deep work. So I've been reading a book called Deep Work. I believe it's by Cal Newport. One of the best books I think you'll ever read, probably overall, probably the most valuable book in today's society. We are fake busy. Humans today are fake busy. We're just a bunch of chickens with our heads cut off, running around searching for dopamine, and we get it from our phones, and we get it from Netflix, and we get it from video games, but we produce all of this low-level, high-stimulus work. We don't embrace boredom. We stand in line, we look at our phone, we're jacking up our brain, and we're decreasing our ability to lock in and focus and produce deep work. Okay, let me give you a couple definitions. Deep work: the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. Results are valuable and difficult to replicate. Shallow work: this is where you are, this is where the whole world is. Shallow work: non-cognitively demanding, logistical style tasks often performed while distracted. The efforts tend to not create much new value in the world and are easy to replicate. So let's think about that. Shallow work. That is what we all do when we sit down to study, but then we also are checking our phone every 5 minutes, right? So we can't truly get into a deep locked in zone. We are writing, we're coming up with a program, whatever it is. A strength coach is writing their program, but they're also paying attention to Netflix, and they're checking their phone every 20 minutes. This is where Americans are at right now, is we're doing all of this shallow work, and it leads to the feeling of fake busy. We are fake busy. Have you ever got to the end of your day and you're like, man, I did so much. I was always on the go. I'm drained. And then you're like, but what did I really do? What did I produce? How did I change the world with a deep, meaningful action? And usually you go back and you're like, oh, I didn't actually accomplish a lot, yet I felt busy. I felt tired. And it's because you were constantly stimulated. These transition periods of going from the car into your work. You're on the phone, and we never embrace boredom. And so your day feels short because we're constantly just spiking our dopamine and stimulating ourselves. Our days feel short and they feel busy, and we don't accomplish anything. Now, when you lock in on deep work, and that means, hey, I'm going to the library, or I'm going into this certain room where I can get deep work done. I get rid of all distractions. I turn my phone off. I put my phone in the other room, and I lock in on a task for several hours at a time. One, that's where true happiness comes from. The feeling that you get after stuff like that takes you mentally to a whole nother level, and you feel so much more accomplished. But two, that's where your best work is done. That's where it goes from busy work, fulfillment, to all of a sudden ideas, transforming yourself, transforming your business, whatever it is. That's where that comes, is from deep work. So there's a few things that I'll be helping you guys out with that I've learned from this book. But today's tip, embrace boredom. So here's a quote: "To claw back our attention skills, we need to stop curing every minor boredom episode with our smartphones. Once you're wired for distraction, you'll crave it." Boom. Once you're wired for distraction, you'll crave it. So we're in line at the DMV. What do? We check our phone. We don't embrace that boredom. I'm sitting there on my couch. I cannot stand boredom. So I pull out my phone. I scroll through. I watch Netflix. I scroll through the internet or through the TV, because again, we're just searching for dopamine, and we scroll through our phone and it gives us that dopamine. It gives us that high stimulation that we're after. And then your brain becomes wired for that. Now, here's another thing that I've been working on the same lines. This is not from the book. This is my own theory, but it's worked wonders for me. Be very, very bored before you hop into studying, or whatever task you want to make a habit. You need to lead into that task with pure boredom. So what I mean is this: I'll go in a room. Let's say I want to study. I'll go in a room, and instead of just scrolling through my phone and then putting my phone down and then studying, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to stare at the wall for 10 minutes. And I'm going to become bored out of my mind. And then after 10 minutes, I'm going to start studying. Now, what that does, and what it's done for me, is it's retrained my brain, because I'm going from low stimulation, dopamine low. Now I start reading, you come across a good little fact, you get a dopamine spike. And now your brain is going to associate that dopamine spike with reading, with studying. That's what we want. That's where addiction comes from. We need to become addicted to the things that take our craft to the next level. So being bored and then going into reading is very, very different than you scrolling through your phone, because scrolling through your phone, high dopamine, and then you read, and yes, you learn a new fact, but it's not spiking. It's actually probably dropping. So it's deep, meaningful work, but your dopamine is actually lower than it was when you were scrolling through your phone. So then your brain associates studying with boredom. So my thing is this. This is my theory. I am not a brain scientist, but my theory is this. There's 3 levels, right? Level 1 is the person who needs to be motivated. They need a pep talk to sit down and study, or to go work out, whatever it is. Level 2 are those who have habits. And I used to think that this is where it stopped. I used to think that habits were king for success, and they can be. But the person with good habits, they sit down at the same time every day and they study, or they work out at 8 a.m. every day. This is part of their routine. But then I realized level 3 is addiction. That is where it's at. Now, I'm not saying that's where it's at for life balance. I'm saying that's where it's at when I notice the other top performers in the industry. When I look at the top NBA players, it went from habit to a true addiction. Addiction, I'm at that level for studying. I'll go out with one of our NBA players. I'll be sitting there in a club, and all I can think about is how bad I want to be at home studying. That is addiction. So that passed the level of like, hey, I sit down every time at 8 a.m. and I read, which I still do. It passed that level, and it got to the point where, hey, I'm out and I'm listening to loud music and people are yelling around me, and all I can do is think about studying. So if you want to get to that next level, I think that you need to be addicted instead of just having good habits. And I think addiction comes from doing things like what I'm talking about. Go from boredom to all of a sudden spiking that dopamine by studying. If you want to become addicted to working out, I think that you should sit on your couch and stare at a wall for 10 minutes and then promise yourself, I am not going to cure this boredom by scrolling through my phone. I'm not going to cure this boredom by any artificial means. The only way I cure this boredom is I go work out. Then boom, dopamine spike, and now you associate that spike with exercise. That's how addiction is formed. That's how you become addicted to exercise. All right, so that's just my little rant on that topic. And again, that is self-experiment. The whole part that I just talked about, forming addiction, I think that's just all stuff that I put together. But one, I would read the book, Deep Work, and I'm also going to be sharing some more tips on that book. But your challenge for this week, or let's say for this month, is start to embrace boredom. It is okay to be bored. You're going to get your brain back. You're going to get your ability to focus. And when you can focus, you can become dominant. I always think like, what if we were in 1980 where everybody was doing this stuff? The good thing is for you, this isn't good for the world, but what's good for you is the world is so distracted right now. All you got to do is lock in and focus, and you beat 90% of your competitors. That's it. Like, if you're willing to produce deep work every single day, you're literally ahead of 90% of your competitors. And then you're willing to do the other stuff, walking into an office and shaking somebody's hand, saying, hi, I'm Tom. I'm interested in getting to the next level in this field. What do you got for me? Right? Instead of sitting back and sending text. So I always just think about like, man, it was probably so hard in 1980 to become successful. Right now, it's probably easier than ever if you're willing to do these simple, basic things. All right, guys, let me know how that's coming for you. I know that a lot of you guys can relate to this because we're all in that state of shallow work, fake busy. We got to get rid of this, man. If we're going to be the best version of our squid selves, this is step number one, and it starts now. After this podcast, it begins. Let me know how you're doing week to week. Give me some check-ins in the YouTube comments. But anyways, we're here to talk about handles. I know this is why you guys came, and this is why you're listening right now. Obviously, I've developed my handles throughout the years, and I've been able to help a lot of our NBA players, college players, high school players, youth players develop their handles. And I have this good system that has worked over and over and over again. So, okay, first of all, I want to talk more in depth than I've ever talked about handles. Yes, we're going to talk about some drills and stuff, but I want to look at the big picture of how do you develop insane handles. So for me, I break it down to 4 categories. Number 1, living your life with a basketball. So in this category, we're talking about not structured drills. We're not talking about playing. We're talking about living your life with a ball in your hand. So when you go to the store, can you dribble to the store, right? When you're listening to music, are you dribbling to the music? Shoot, when you go to bed, can you hold that basketball and hug it like it's a teddy bear, right? And we're going to talk about this more in depth, but I think this is the number 1 key for developing handles long term. 2, watching. Your influences shape your handles. We'll come back to that. 3, playing basketball, all right? The obvious one. This is playing 1s, 3s, 5s, and this is also a certain structured games that we're going to talk about in a second. And number 4 is drills, right? And so this is where everybody goes, oh, if you want handles, you got to do drills. Well, that's only one component, and it's probably the 4th most important component. Now, it doesn't mean that it's not extremely important. It is. We have an entire program that is mostly based off drills. So, look, I understand the importance of drills, but if you forget these first 3, then you are not going to become a world-class ball handler. Okay, so let's dive a little bit deeper into each category. So, category 1, living your life with a basketball. So, for me, one of the reasons why my handles got so good is my mom said, go ahead and dribble in the house. She was okay with me dribbling in the house. And I had this old wood house. This it was probably built in the early 1900s, honestly. And I could dribble, and you could hear the house shaking. You could feel it shaking. She would say that there would be like nails that start to poke out of the top story. But she was okay with it. It's funny because when I moved out, she was like, I actually miss it. I miss the shaking of the house every time the ball bounced. But that was one thing for me. I mean, I watched the Pistol Pete movie, which if you haven't watched that, you got to go watch that. I watched that movie and I noticed how he would dribble around the house, how he would be walking down the street, always dribbling. And I took that advice and I wanted to be Pistol Pete. I actually told everybody, you guys got to call me Pistol PJ. So that became my nickname, Pistol PJ, because I wanted to be Pete Maravich so bad. But it wasn't like the Pete Maravich drills, right? Like people look at the Maravich drills of pounding between the legs, catching behind the back, all that. That stuff's cool. But it was just him, how it was just how he was so glued to the basketball. And so everywhere that I went, if I'm walking to the store, I'm dribbling to the store and I'm challenging myself. Can I go in between my legs over and over again all the way until I get to the store without messing up? And so I'd give myself these little challenges. Dribbling in the house, I would dribble to music. That's how I got developed some rhythm with it in my handles. I would put on music. I would put on like a Jay-Z album, Tupac album, and I would just dribble to the beat. And eventually I got so good that I would put on like Andre 3000 or Eminem, where they have they're rhyming together multiple things within a sentence, right? Within one bar, they have 2 rhymes going on. And for each rhyme, it was a different move. So you had one rhyme and it was a cross. And then another rhyme, it would be between. And so eventually I got to the point, it was just a lot of fun for me to start to like develop moves to even rhyming patterns. And I think that's one of the best things. And that's one thing that we do in the ball handling program is I tell you, just put on your favorite instrumental and just freestyle to it and stick to that beat. Go create some art. Huge way to improve your handles. 1, because it's fun, so you're going to get more reps. But 2, because rhythm is such an important part of ball handling, and you can develop that at its peak through music. Anyways, I lived my entire life with a basketball in my hands. When I was going to bed, I would sleep with it. And so eventually it's not a basketball, it's just an extension of your hand. That's what it feels like. And when you feel like the ball is an extension of your hand, you are not going to lose that ball come game time. So this is probably the one that's the most important and also the most overlooked. Kids want to do the drills, kids want to play, but kids do not want to live their life with the ball in their hand. It's almost like not as cool anymore, which when I was growing up, it was kind of cool to do. But not as many. I don't notice as many kids doing that anymore, and I think that you need to. Okay, category 2 is watching. So whoever you watch, whoever your influences are, you might become them given the reps, right? You can't be some guy who just like sits there and watches Michael Jordan play and then hope that you become him because you didn't get those reps or you don't have those genetics. But a good example of this is Kyrie Irving and Rod Strickland. So Rod Strickland, I believe, was Kyrie's godfather. And Kyrie grew up with him as his influence. And so he watched his game so much and he would go out and try the moves. If you look up a comparison of Rod Strickland's handle package and finishing package, it's identical to Kyrie's. Now, Kyrie took that and went to the next level with it, but you can see Rod Strickland's game in Kyrie. A lot of times, your handle is going to be shaped by who you're the most interested in. So I watched a lot of Steve Nash. And so when I play in a game, you can see the Steve Nash influence, which is fun for me to watch like high school players or college players without knowing them, without talking to them, and just being like, oh, you watch a lot of that person because I see it in your movements. So you got to be careful of who your influences are. And when it comes to watching, you need to pick people that are similar to your athleticism, right? If I watched LeBron, LeBron is skilled. I mean, there's stuff that I can learn from him, but I can't watch him and pattern my game after LeBron because he might have a bad move and score anyways because he's that big and strong and just he can overpower people, right? LeBron can just play bully ball. LeBron can just pull up and elevate and shoot over anybody. I can't do that at 5'11" with a 5'11" wingspan. So I got to study people who are similar to me. Otherwise, you develop all the wrong moves. You might master their moves, but you can't get them off in a game. So be careful with who you study. You want to study people that are similar to you and people who are succeeding with your athleticism and your height. So number 3 is playing. This one is obvious. The more you play, the better your handle is going to get. And I'm talking 1s, I'm talking 3s, and I'm talking 5s. When it comes to playing, I mean, people overlook it, but this is where you really find out what actually works. And you got to keep in mind, there's players at the NBA level with great handles who have never done a drill in their life. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing. Their handles might be better had they done drills, but there's guys that really just played and just playing developed their handles how they needed to be developed. So you cannot forget to play because the guys that do all of the drills, they get really good at doing drills and they never bridge that gap of how to actually turn it into game handles, right? When you play, a lot of times you develop naturally, you develop these little tricks that you would never develop through a drill, right? So these dirty tricks, these little like swiping the offhand, keeping an active offhand, you getting a hand check from a dude who plays aggressive defense, you got to figure out how to swipe his hand down. So when I guard Shabazz Napier, this is when I realized people who know how to swipe a hand, you cannot hand check them because it puts you out of position. So normally, playing against anybody, even other NBA players, sometimes I will go and I'll just give them a hand check, or I'll get an arm bar right on their hip and I'll try to just lock them up by being physical. But like Shabazz, as soon as he feels that, he swipes with that other hand, knocks your arm down, and now you're out of position. So it's like a boxer who took a swing and now he's out of position and he's getting hit with a right hook. It's the same thing. But most people they don't know. They don't have these tips and tricks because they grew up just doing drills. They haven't played enough basketball to really understand these little things. And then the other thing with playing that I think is lacking in today's game, especially when it comes to working on your handles, is you should do some structured games. So it's okay to go out there with 2 other friends and just work on a trap. Like literally come over half court and have your friends trap you and say, okay, how do I get out of this? Like, yes, I know in a game, we're going to try to find the open man, but it's a good skill to have to be able to escape that trap just with your handles. That is a very valuable skill to have. So, hey, come across half court, have your primary defender riding on the side, and have the other friend jump you. Sometimes you split, sometimes you attack outside leg, whatever it is, but just go through these reps. Because in a game, if you're playing a pickup game, one, you're probably not going to see traps, but you only have the ball so often. So you can only get X amount of reps playing 5-on-5. Now playing 1-on-1, you get the ball 50% of the time. So you get more reps. But there's certain situations where we're going to see all the time in games, but they are never practiced. For example, traps. Another one, off a pick and roll. So have a primary defender guard how he normally would, and then have somebody hedge, and then work on different pick and roll reads, and go live. We do too much dummy D stuff where the coach is just out there dogging it. We don't develop the right habits. We do moves that you get by on because the coach wasn't really playing D, and then you get into a game and you realize, oh, that's getting stripped because that was soft. Go hard and replicate game situations. So I think that's one thing that is missing is you gotta have some little structured games, 2-on-1, 3-on-1, whatever it is, to work on these situations that you don't normally get to work on in 1-on-1 and 5-on-5. Okay, and category number 4 is drills. All right, so this is what people get excited about. What are the drills? So First of all, one thing that we do in our ball handling program that's very different from how other people approach ball handling is we spend just as much time on the lower body as we do on the upper body. People think handles and they think what matters is dribbling. No, dribbling is just one component of ball handling. Ball handling is the big picture. Dribbling, what's going on with the hands, is one small component. What's even more important is the footwork and the agility, right? I would take the guy who can move really well and doesn't have great dribbling ability. I would take the guy who can move really, really well, has good first step explosiveness, good deceleration, good change of direction, all of these things. And this guy might have subpar dribbling ability. He's okay with the hands. Think Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook is not the best dribbler. He very rarely gets to a good dribble combo, but he'll just hesitate and blow by you because what happens below the belly button for him is so good. He's so explosive. His change of direction is so good. He has good agility. So he doesn't need much. He's got a hezzy push and he's got a hezzy cross. Like there's a few things that he does really well. On the flip side, you got people who don't have the footwork. They don't have the agility, but they do really good with dribbling. These are the guys that will wow you in stationary drills. They'll dribble that ball so fast. They'll pull out 2 basketballs, 3 basketballs. They're doing all the party tricks. That stuff is cool, but that is going to go nowhere on the court. So I would rather have the player who is not as good at dribbling, but can move really well. And so that's why in our program, we focus so much on change of direction, on footwork, on deceleration, acceleration. That is the meat and potatoes of ball handling. So another thing that we do in the program is we're looking at, okay, what do we want to do with the ball? Now let's remove the ball and let's do that without the ball. So this is one thing that is definitely overlooked is let's groove the pattern. Let's work on the footwork without a basketball because when I take the basketball away, I can now move at 100% of the speed that my body is meant to move at. And so when I look at building physiological traits like deceleration, acceleration, change of direction, we need actual changes in our nervous system and in our muscle and tendons, right? And those changes are only going to come about by us operating at 100% in training. When you add a basketball, even the best ball handlers, all of a sudden that 100% is now 95%, 90%. You can't quite go as fast. You can't quite change directions as fast as when you don't have a basketball, right? It's pretty obvious. Now, the other issue is most people are not great dribblers. So I'm talking about you're a great dribbler and you're at 95%. But what about the other people who the handle is the major limiting factor? So they're only moving at 80% or 85% because the handle, the dribbling component itself is limiting them. You cannot build these physiological traits, right? It's when people hook up to bands and do all of this ball handling. It's like, why? Because you're slowing yourself down. Why not build these physiological traits with the bands or do these agility drills without it, work at 100%, build the physiological traits. Now you're a faster athlete who changes directions better. Now add in the basketball, right? So that's something that I think is misunderstood is like, oh, if I want to change directions better with the ball, I got to train by using the ball. Well, no, let's build them separate. Let's build these physiological traits. Let's get more explosive, and then let's add the basketball in. So we'll do a lot of stuff where we're looking at moves, and we just take away the basketball, and let's work on changing directions. Let's do it without the ball. Let's work on body positions, and then let's add in the basketball, and then let's bridge that gap. Okay, the other thing that we focus on more than most people in our ball handling program is mobility and stability. So much of ball handling is mobility, and so much of mobility is having adequate stability. So what I mean is like, go watch Kyrie Irving dribble. The hip internal rotation that he gets to will blow your mind. So if we're talking about like a crossover, you're going to notice that his knee almost touches the floor. The bottom of his foot turns out. So you see extreme ranges of motion in the ankle and with hip internal rotation. It actually almost looks dangerous when you watch it. Watch Kemba Walker, watch Kyrie, anybody with insane handles. They have really, really good mobility. Now, they didn't necessarily stretch their way there. For them, they played their way there. They got so many reps that the game of basketball formed their body the way the game wanted it to be formed. So a lot of this comes from challenging these different low positions in your actual drills, but we can assist it by doing additional mobility, and we can especially assist it by doing mobility with stability. So I'm not talking about sitting there in a static stretch. I'm talking about doing hip mobility on the move, loading it. That's where you build stability at all these ranges. Then your nervous system goes, hey, we have stability at these end ranges. Let's trust it. Now it almost like unlocks. It's like it gives you the key to unlock that extra amount of range of motion. Because you got to keep in mind how smart your body is. Every coach yells at their player every year, get lower, get lower, get lower, get lower. This never stops. And the player's like, coach, I'm trying. I can't. They move way faster in upright positions. They don't move good in those low positions. And it's because their body doesn't have access to those positions. And so a lot of the time, it is a lack of stability and motor control. So your body is so smart. It's like, hey, you're not stable down in these low positions. So why in the world would I go 100% speed in these positions? I'm going to tear an ACL. So it protects against that, and it says, no, you don't have access to these low positions. You're going to operate. You're going to operate in upright positions. So that is where this constant battle between coach yelling, get low, and player not doing it comes from. And so in our ball handling program, we do a lot of strengthening at end range. We do some hip mobility flows. We have something called handle hip mobility, which is basically like this circuit that you can do as a warm-up to get your hips and get your ankles where they need to be to get down in those super low positions that are so necessary for being a great ball handler. What bothers the heck out of me is when I see kids working on their handles day and night, and they're not doing this kind of stuff, because it's like, what are you doing? Where are you going to go with this? Are you going to be the best stationary ball handler the world has ever seen? Might get you some Instagram views, but it's not going to get you anywhere on the court. We got to be good movers. So start looking at your hip mobility, your hip strengthening, your ankle mobility, and ankle stability. Start looking at this stuff as something that supplements your handles and a very, very necessary component for ball handling. So now let's move up and let's look at what's going on with the hands, because, hey, at the end of the day, what happens with the hands does still matter. We do want the perfect combination of below the belly button and above the belly button. We want everything to work together. So there's a few different things, and we go way more in depth in our program on what we need and the drills to satisfy each category. But let me just give you a couple categories of dribbling that I think you really, really need. So 1, cuff. 2, pound. 3, ball control. 4, levels. So that's high and low, and working with our width, tight and loose. And 5, pace. All right, so there's plenty of things outside of those 5 things that really matter, but I want to break down these things because I think these are probably the most important components of dribbling. So 1, the cuff. This is the hardest to build, and this is the easiest to lose. So for me, since I grew up with a ball in my hand, dribbling is almost like riding a bike. Like we just finished up a crazy busy summer where I was bouncing gym to gym to gym, training players. This is the summer where I probably put the least amount of work in. I put almost 0 work in on my vertical, and I put probably 0. I don't think I ever worked on my handles all summer. I got in the gym today to actually film a few of these drills. Almost everything was there. It's just like riding a bike when you've developed your handles to a certain level. But there's one thing that goes: cuff. your cuffing ability goes. And I've noticed this in as little of a week of not working on my handles, that cuffing ability is what will leave you. I could pound hard, I could dribble low, I could change my pace, I could do all this stuff, but I cannot cuff. Now, what I mean by the cuff is basically what used to be illegal, right? What used to be illegal is turning your hand on that ball. So not turning your hand under the ball, but turning your hand from the top to the side to push your dribble. So think about your in and out moves. Think about that. Think about your wrap around the legs. Think about your behind the backs, how there's a cuff component where you actually have to move the ball in the air. Your spin moves where you're picking it up and you're pulling that ball with you. So almost all of your moves in today's game involves a significant cuff component. The best ball handlers in today's game, they have that. Kyrie Irving can do this like crazy. This is why when you compare handles from the 1970s to now, it looks like today's players' handle is so much better than the 1980s and 70s and 60s guys. And part of it is because we have that ability to cuff. So we can literally be putting down our dribble and then decide at the last moment, I'm going to put it down in a different place and cuff it and put it down in a different place, or like pull it on an in and out. Back in the day, you had to keep your hand on top of the ball. Any type of cuff was a carry. So they would keep their hands on top of the ball, and they were very impressive with their ability to do that. But when you keep your hand truly on top and you never move it to the side of the ball, your moves are limited. You cannot do a spin move. With your hand on top of the ball, you need to make a spin move in 2 dribbles. You cannot just cuff and pull it. So many different moves. You can't do any type of in and outs, right? In and outs are a relatively new move. Back in the day, an in and out was a V dribble. Like you literally had to push it this way and then grab it and then push it this way. So it was a 2 dribble move instead of a just in and out 1 dribble move. So let me give you my favorite drill for the cuff. So in the program, we actually do a lot of cone cuff drills. Basically, you put 2 cones down. Let's dribble over 1 cone, put it down in the middle, and then bring it back and put it down on the outside, right? That would be level 1. Another one is you could cuff it over both cones. Another one is you could cuff it in the middle, pound, and then bring it around the back. And then cuff it in the middle, pound, bring it around the back. This is challenging our ability to manipulate our dribble, or challenging our ability to move that ball without carrying it. But here's my favorite one. And okay, I understand this is a carry. This is not a game-specific move, but this is something that I've used for our NBA players where it's just in the warm-up. And your ability to cuff improves so much that it just makes your in and outs easy. It makes your single leg wraps easy. It makes your spin moves easy because you just have full control over the basketball. So we typically go from baseline to baseline, right hand, and then we'll switch baseline back to baseline with the left. That's 1 set. You could do, if this is just your warm-up, you might do 2 sets. If this is in your own ball handling workout, you might do up to 4, 5, 6 sets. So basically, I'm going to step and I'm going to go in and out, your normal in and out. I'm going to take another step and I'm going to wrap around my right leg. I'm going to take another step and now I'm going across the body and I'm going to wrap around and bring it back through from the left side. So I'm bringing it around the left leg. Okay, it's always coming back to my right hand. Now on that last one, I'm going all the way around my back. I'm putting it around. So I don't know if you've seen the old Iverson commercials where he brought it around the back and then dropped it. Obviously, it's a major carry, but that's where I got the idea for that cuff around. So that is going to be probably your hardest one, where we bring it all the way across the body and then bring it back to that right hand. Now, this all has to happen in a rhythmic fashion. So if I'm with the right hand, every time the left foot hits, we do a move. So the left foot hits, in and out, recover with the right foot. Left foot hits, wrap around the leg, recover with the right foot. Left foot hits, wrap around the left leg. Left foot hits, wrap all the way around the back. And then I go straight back in to that first one. So then it's back in and out, wrap around right, wrap around left, wrap around full body. This drill is so good for building the cuff. And this isn't the only drill. I mean, we have a different drill almost every week in our ball handling program. But this is one that for me has stood the test of time. I started doing this a long time ago. I still do it, and I still give it to all of my athletes. They do it when they're off, working with their teams or whatever. This is part of their warm-up because it just gives you that feeling that the ball is an extension of the hand, and it really improves that ability to cuff. And remember, like I said, this is the first quality to go, is your cuffing ability. So this is something that you need to be touching up on daily. Okay, next component that we got to master is our power pound. So I was sitting on the sideline. We were at a high school gym in LA. This was last year, and it was a workout. It was James Harden and Chris Paul. And I'm sitting there on the sideline, and they're doing some ball handling drills into shooting. And when Chris Paul dribbled the basketball, it was so loud. That is all that I could pay attention to. He would pound the ball so hard that it seemed like he was almost like trying to put a hole in the floor. This is one thing that is extremely important, is your ability to pound the basketball hard. Now, I'm not saying that this is where you live. I'm not saying every time you dribble the basketball you pound hard. Otherwise, you're going to look like that meme of the dude, he's dribbling between his legs going crazy, and the caption's like, when Bay comes to watch you play. That's what you're going to look like if you do that at all times, right? We need some soft dribbles, finesse dribbles, changes in width and height, all that. But the ability to pound, and the reason why it matters is because when you get picked, when you get the ball stolen from you, it usually doesn't happen when the ball is in the hand, and it doesn't happen when the ball is on the floor, right? So when you get picked, it's because it's in that transition period. The ball is in the air, right? Makes sense. But how do we make that time where the ball is in the air shorter and shorter and shorter? Well, we got to put more force into the basketball so that the basketball's velocity increases and it spends less time in the air. It's going to reach the floor faster, and then, of course, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. This is just some Newton stuff. It's going to bounce back to the hand faster. So it spends less time. So if you're spending 0.3 seconds, if we get it down to 0.2 seconds from the point that the ball leaves the hand to the point that it returns to the hand, or 0.1 seconds, that is significantly increasing your chances of not getting the ball stolen. So a lot of that, is going to come down to your strength. It's going to come down to your core. It's going to come down to your ability to extend, right? A lot of people short arm their dribble and they don't fully extend. Quick tip that we talk about in the program, think about your shooting form. So you reach up, you follow through, you snap the wrist, you have full elbow extension. A power pound is the same thing, except we're not aiming up, we're aiming straight down towards the floor. So it's a hard pound, finish, wrist extension, elbow extension. We're not staying coiled. We're not staying tucked with that elbow or the wrist. This is going to lead to a harder pound. Now, let me give you guys a few ideas on how to build this trait. So there's a few different things that we do in the ball handling program. One, deflated basketball. So if you take some of the air out, let's say we take 50% of the air out in the basketball, well, now I have to pound so much harder. So I'm working with this deflated basketball, and I'm going to dribble it, but when I dribble, it doesn't have that same energy return from the floor. So to get it back up to my hands, I got to pound as hard as I can. So you do a lot of your drills with that deflated basketball. That works really well. If you don't want to deflate your basketball, you could go on grass. If you have like short grass, isn't going to work, but if you have like really thick grass, that's one thing that could take the energy away from that bounce back. If you have thick carpet, that might work. If you have like a pillow, you could dribble on the pillow. That's a little bit tougher to do combo moves on, but if you're just sitting there and doing a power pound, that might work. I've done it on a box where I have like a thin foam box and I push it into that box. The other thing that we'll do, and I like this one a lot, is just elevating yourself. So stand on a small box, or if you don't have a small box, go all the way up on a chair. Make sure that chair is nice and stable. And then we're just going to hit some moves. It could be a basic pound, right hand, left hand. It could be crossovers. It could be V dribbles. But when you elevate yourself, now I got to pound that much harder to get it to the floor and to get that ball to bounce all the way back up. So now we're strengthening that pattern and we're learning how to apply force into that basketball and get full extension of that elbow and wrist. Now, what most people do for the pound is they'll just add a weighted basketball. I love weighted basketballs. They have their place, but you got to understand that with weighted basketballs, hand-to-hand exchanges don't make a lot of sense. So if you're looking at a crossover, the amount of stress to the medial aspect of the elbow is pretty significant. So already in ball handling, with a hard crossover, you get a lot of stresses to the medial aspect of the elbow. But when you add a weighted basketball, I think those stresses exceed a tolerable amount, at least if you're doing a lot of your drills with the weighted ball. So what I like a weighted ball for is just stationary pounds. So think about like your tricep extension, right? There's nothing medial, lateral going on. It's just straight up and straight down. You're working your elbow as a hinge joint. If you're working it as a hinge joint, then you're not going to have those medial and lateral stresses. So if you're looking at a pure pound, I think a weighted ball makes a lot of sense. But when we get into that crossover stuff, I don't think, or between the legs, behind the back, I don't think that that is going to be very good for you long term. And we can get those same traits of putting more force into the ball by elevating ourselves. You're going to get the same benefits as a weighted ball, but you're going to do it without that risk of injury. Okay, ball control. So ball control, I mean, a lot of your cuff stuff is going to help with ball control. Like I said, your pound is going to help with ball control. You're going to get stripped less. But what I mean by ball control is this is not your moves. This is not your shiftiness. This is your ability to control the basketball in any scenario. So this is one that's tough to replicate in drills because we don't have a live defender. Anytime we can have a live defender or do like 2-on-1s, like what I'm talking about with throwing a trap at you and working on having handles in those situations, that's the best. Or like I get in, I would call it the gauntlet. I would set up 4 cones. And these 4 cones would just be like 10 feet apart. So this is a pretty small box. And I would get in there with the boxing, the gloves. So I would get in there and I would set the timer. So I'd go like 45 seconds. And now the player's just got to dribble and I'm giving him contact. I'm swiping at his arms. I'm swiping at the basketball, trying to get a steal. He's got to go the entire 45 seconds without losing the ball. And he's got to stay within this circle or within this square. So I'm pushing him. I'm making him get to the next cone. I'm challenging him. I'm saying, hey, get to that cone. And he's got to figure out how to get there without losing the basketball and doing it with a lot of contact. So ball control is best developed with a partner. It's best developed with a partner or playing basketball. But there is still a lot of stuff that we can do for ball control. Work on challenging moves and work on not messing up. Because when we're building other traits, we're trying to mess up. Like power pound, if you can get like 15 seconds without messing up, you're probably not going hard enough. Right? You're not getting out of your comfort zone. Same thing with the cuff, right? If you can easily do it without losing the ball, chances are good that you're not going hard enough. But when it comes to ball control, this is where we want to put ourselves in the mindset of I'm in a game and I cannot lose this dribble. And now let's work on the moves that I would be hitting in a game, right? You can do freestyles. Set the clock for 20, 30 seconds and just start freestyling. Hit a bunch of different moves, but tell yourself, I cannot mess up. I'm going to get to these moves, but I cannot mess up in this 20 or 30 second window. So there's times where we want to mess up. There's times where we don't want to mess up. When we're looking at pure ball control, this is where I don't want you to mess up as much. Okay, the next component, levels. This is missed by so many people. I think the problem with levels, and when I say levels, I'm talking about height. So I'm talking about dribbling at chest level. I'm talking about dribbling at waist level. And I'm talking about dribbling at knee level and even below ankle level, right? There's so many people. I think it comes from this myth. The myth is you got to make your moves low. Everything's got to be low. You know what you're going to be if everything is low? The least shifty player on the floor, right? When you're low, you're controlled. Ball control is good. but you can't make moves in this tight little box, right? If you look at the best moves in NBA history, Allen Iverson's loose cross, Jamal Crawford's basically every move. These things are wide because you can now sell the dribble, and they're also high. They're also being operated around chest height. Dribbling on a fast break. You ever seen somebody dribble on a fast break at knee level? No. You know how much slower you would be if you're trying to dribble low on a fast break? You got to push that thing out, and you're going to be dribbling close to chest height. We should do our drills there, right? But there are times where protective reasons, splitting defense, there's a lot of times where we also have to be ankle height or knee height. So we need to structure our drills where we hit all of them. So in the program, we'll just give you a combo move. Doesn't matter what it is, just make it harder every week or every month. Think about your combo move. So let's say cross, cross, between, behind, all right? Your first, whatever, let's say 20 seconds is going to be at chest height, and it's going to be as wide as you can. This is where the most mess ups happen. So I'm going wide as I can. I'm going chest height, cross, between, behind. I'm getting loose with it. I cannot be down in this crouch down low position. I'm going to be standing upright, and I'm going to be getting as long with it as possible. This is how you develop those loose handles, those shifty handles that of like a Allen Iverson or Jamal Crawford. Then the next 20 seconds, we would go down to waist height or hip height. So now I'm in a little bit more of a crouch position, and I'm doing the same one, cross, between, behind, right? Now I am bringing it in a little bit. So I might still be just outside of my frame with the basketball, but I'm not getting fully extended like I was at that top level. All right, and then I would go down to my knees. So now you're in this low crouch position. This is where everybody does their ball handling drills. Now you're in this low crouch position, and now everything is inside the frame. So now I'm keeping it tight, cross, between, behind. Now, if you want to add that fourth one, you can go all the way down to the ankles. So now I'm very tight. The ball is barely getting off the ground, cross, between, behind. Now you're not going to operate as much in those super low positions, ankle level positions, but it's good to have because there are times where you got to split the defense and tap low. There's times where you have so much ball pressure on a trap or whatever, you can't operate high. You got to get super low. So there is value there. The other reason why there's value with ankle height dribbling, like super low stuff, think about your typical figure eight. Think about your single arm figure eights, your tap in and outs. All of these things, even if it's not game specific, you're working on your touch, you're working on your hand speed. Arguably the best thing that you could do for your hand speed is dribble a ball very, very fast, very, very low, right? Like we don't make fun of boxers who are on the speed bag. A boxer's not going to go into a fight boxing like this, moving his hands as fast as he can, but they'll do it in training here and there because it improves a trait. It improves our ability to increase that hand speed. So it's the same thing. A basketball player doing low, fast dribbles is like a boxer doing the speed bag. We're just improving this trait, improving the nervous system, improving our hand speed, right? This doesn't mean that we're going to go into games and all of a sudden start trying to dribble as low as possible. So again, changing levels, chest height, waist or hip height, knees, ankles, and messing with those widths. We got to do all of those things within our sessions. Okay, and then the other one is pace. And this is one that is hard to develop. Most of this is going to come through playing, but your ability to change paces just with the dribble. Now, changing paces with the body is even more important, and there's drills to improve that. But let's start, let's put some training wheels on to start, and let's figure out just how to change pace with the dribble. So we'll do a stationary combo move or whatever we're doing, and I'm going to go off percentages. So I'll yell out 20%. I want you to do this combo move at 20%. Let's say cross, between, behind. Cross, between, behind. Show me that you have the ability to move slow, right? James Harden does not dribble at 100% speed. He would not be shifty at all if that was his game. He has the ability to lull you to sleep and go actually slower than probably anybody in the NBA. And then slow, boom, 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 I'm gone, right? It's that change in pace. It's not it's not strictly your acceleration abilities. It's how fast you change paces, and it's how drastic was that change of pace. Was I 80% to 100%, or was I 80% and then dropped to 20% and then up to 100%? So it's the ability to change your pace. But again, on these simple drills, hit a combo, and I'm calling out 20%. I'm calling out 100%. You go as fast as you can. 80%, work at 80, 100%, work at 100. So this just teaches a player how to actually utilize these different paces. Now, I know a lot of you guys don't have somebody to call it out for you, but you can simply do some stuff like, hey, I'm 100% for 5 seconds, and then I'm 10%, and then I'm 90%, and then I'm 20%. And just work with these different percentages, hit the same combo move, and then just rep that out for 30 seconds or 45 or a minute, whatever you want to do, and just change paces. And then, so once you get that, now you can really start to put it on the move and not just learn how to change pace on the dribble, but how to change pace with your body. And we have a lot of really good drills for that on the Handle program as well. And like I said, there's way more components that we should be focused on, dual brain capabilities. So how can we get that dribble at the subconscious level? How can I throw a different distraction where I can't think about the handles? This is where your things like two-ball dribbling comes into play. We don't want this to take up a lot of our training. This is an extra 5%, 10%. But it can go a long way in getting your ability, your dual brain capabilities. Then you come into a game and you can have your mind on the scoreboard, the shot clock winding down. You know, the crowd is going crazy, and I don't have to sit there and think about my handle. Everything is at the subconscious level. So there's stuff that we do for improved dual brain capabilities. So we talk about these dirty tricks. These are going to be improved through playing, but maybe there are some drills that can improve this. So looking at like Michael Lancaster stuff, picking up a cone. I don't love that stuff, but maybe a player just doesn't know how to dribble a basketball while working the other hand, right? So at that general level, sure, dropping down, keeping your dribble, and picking up a cone might be a necessary step. It is very general. It is not going to translate, right? That's where you got to be careful when you start saying the drills translate. It's not going to translate, but at the general level, it's going to build our ability to dribble with one hand and move our other hand. It's like the example in baseball. Like, you're not going to be the best hitter just because you have the best vision, right? You can't just predict like, oh, this kid is going to be really good at baseball because he has great vision. But if you take somebody who plays baseball and their vision is struggling, and you go out and you do an eye test, you find out their vision's not that good, you get contacts, that was a very general solution. You didn't improve their ability directly to play baseball. You just improved their ability to see better. And then because they had those baseball skills and they rep it out, that made them a better baseball player. So that was a general solution for a specific result. Sometimes that's where we're at in basketball. So what we're talking about with off-arm activation, we might need a general solution of let's just improve our ability to dribble while moving the other hand, and maybe we will get a more specific result. Now, that doesn't substitute. I think this is where people go wrong, is they look at that and they go, oh, that's how you improve your off-arm activation. No. That's the Kickstarter. That's your training wheels. Where it really comes is when you actually play and when you actually get a hand check, right? If you have a partner, have them just be guarding you and then randomly throw a hand, and you got to be able to swipe out and then burst out into that first step. So really getting the feel for it and knowing when to use it, that's where it's going to be taken to that next level. But don't overlook some stuff that could be very general that looks like it's not game specific, so people run away from it, but that might actually help you in the long run. Another dirty trick that you might be able to improve a little bit in practice, but you're mostly going to have to play to get this, or set up a fake pick and roll or set up a structured game, is dribble release. So like, how many times have you had it? And I guarantee you've had this. I've had this happen a million times, and I could not figure it out in high school. How many times have you had it where you made a good move, you blew by the defender, and then they reached around you? They had a little wrap around and they poked the ball out. This happens all the time. I didn't learn until later on in college. Actually, I was training a guy who was really good. I would reach around and try to poke it out, and I could never get it. And I asked him, I'm like, why can I never do a good wraparound steal on you? And he said, it's because I release it. So most of us, when you make that move, we keep the ball in our hand for way too long, and then it's within reach of that wraparound, especially when you get to those higher levels. And now the point guard's got 6'6", 6'8" wingspans and are quick. Whew, that is dangerous, my guy. That is so dangerous. So we got to be able to release the basketball. So I hit that move, and you got to have the intuition. You got to know when they're reaching around, which you can kind of feel it because they bail out of the move a little bit early because they know that they're out of position. So you got to, first of all, play enough basketball to identify when that reach around is coming. But when you feel like it's a situation where they are going to hit that reach around, got to get rid of the basketball. You got to release the dribble. So release and then chase it. So you don't want to fully extend like we normally would in a power pound because the ball is in the hand too long and it's too close. So we got to release it and push it forward. That way when they swipe, it is way out in front of them. It's at a distance where they wouldn't be able to get a hand on it. So that's one of those dirty tricks that you're just going to develop through playing. But when we're working in drills, like we could set up with a partner and just blow by them and say, hey, reach around and get it, and just work on those little dribble releases. But if you don't have a partner, let's work on our moves, like whatever move you're working on. Let's say you're working on an in and out crossover. Work on in and out crossover and then a dribble release. Get it out of your hand quick, push the ball forward, and then chase it. So you got to start to not only work on the primary move, but work on how you're going to avoid that wraparound, right? And then we get into, okay, what's your secondary move? Are we getting to Euros? Are we getting to a spin move off the big? And so we want to start to train all of these different game components, but that would be a whole nother topic that we would have to get into. Right now, we're just talking about how to develop these traits that are going to make us a great ball handler. But that pretty much wraps it up for today. Pay attention to our next few videos. We're going to kind of release some more ball handling drills throughout this video. Ball handling is a tough thing to talk about on a podcast because we can't actually show it. So one, in the YouTube video, we're going to have some drills for this podcast, but also throughout the week, we're going to kind of release some drills here and there. And then like I talked about, if you want to kind of take your handles to the next level and you're fully dedicated and you're fully bought in, then check out the program right now. It's 20% off. It's one of those things where you can do this in season, you can do this out of season. You can never become too good of a ball handler. That's something that a coach told me a long time ago when I was in third grade. He looked at me in the eyes. He goes, look, all you need to become a great ball handler is a little bit of space and a basketball. It's arguably the easiest trait to become great at because you could put a lot of extra effort into your ball handling. So he said, look, you can never be too good of a ball handler. And I took that to heart, and I became a really good ball handler. Now, I want you guys to understand, you got to develop this hierarchy in training. So you got to sit down and rank what matters the most to you, because I don't want you to like go all in on ball handling if what you really need is shooting. But that doesn't mean that you will ever take handles out of your program. It's just things shift. Maybe you start adding ball handling drills into your shooting, right? And that's the other thing that we didn't get to talk about today is meshing the two together, right? Because there's a lot of people who can shoot well and they can dribble well. But when it comes to dribbling into pull-ups and bridging those two things together, they're not very good. That's why a lot of the best ball handlers aren't great shooters. They can't bridge the gap very well. And we can go more into detail in another episode on that. But I just want you guys to understand, look, if you're a good ball handler or a great ball handler and what you got to do is improve your shooting, you got to prioritize shooting. So it might not make sense to put in an extra 30 or 45 minutes a day on ball handling, but you can start adding some pocket pickups. So a good dribble combo into a pocket pickup, making sure that your hands and your feet are right, and then go back into that combo, pocket pickup, right? And then add it different combo straight into a shot. trying to get that pocket pickup faster and faster and faster. And so even though you're improving your shooting and you're getting your shooting reps, you're adding in some extra ball handling. But it all comes down to that hierarchy. If you're somebody who has poor handles, you might need to really prioritize it, and you need to probably add ball handling into your skill workout, but also do additional dribbling. Like I said, all you need is a ball and some space. So it might be something where you go home at night and you do the ball handling program in your backyard or in your garage or in your room, whatever you got to do. But have that hierarchy, and don't let a coach tell you that handles don't matter. In this field, and it's so weird, in training, in strength and conditioning and in skills training, there's always an action, and there's not an equal and opposite reaction. Instead, there is an overreaction to that initial action. Bothers me so much. So what I mean is handles went viral in like the last maybe 5 years, right? Handles were like everything. Every mixtape, Instagram page, everything was about handles. Then coaches came in and said, handles doesn't matter. You don't need handles at all. Klay Thompson takes 4 dribbles and he scores 60 points. So they had this overreaction to it. Guess what? 99% of the world will be under 6 foot. Name a 6 foot 3-and-D guy in the NBA. I'll wait. Still waiting. Calvin, we might be here all night because nobody is going to give us the answer. There's no such thing as a 6 foot 3-and-D guy. If you're if you're under 6'2", these days, if you're under 6'3", you're going to have to be able to dribble really, really well. You're going to have to create for your teammates. You're going to have to be able to get anywhere on the floor with your dribble. So don't let a coach tell you, oh, dribbling doesn't matter. Ball handling's overrated. No, we don't want to over dribble in games, of course, but we need to have the ball on a string. So I'm out, but make sure that you guys leave me some comments. Let me know, first of all, what you thought about this episode. Let me know what you're missing in your handles. Look at those components that we talked about. Are you doing too much drills? Are you doing not enough drills? Are you playing enough? Do you live your life with a ball in your hands? Do you have the right influences? Are you watching enough basketball, and are you watching the right type of basketball? Let me know. And of course, I know in the YouTube comments you're going to talk about, oh, well, what about IQ off a pick and roll? I get it. That would be an entire other 5-hour segment. So I can only do so much, but I just wanted to talk about ball handling. Eventually, we might get into the IQ stuff, and I might have some guests on that can give some additional insight on stuff like that. But for now, I'm out. I'll see you guys next time.